It's my honor to introduce and welcome Mr. Gopal Amir Yafa, a visionary and compassionate leader in the global yoga community. Has dedicated his life to foster peace and connection through his innovative work. Starting his journey as a teenager, he found his calling in yoga and meditation at the young age of 14, which deepened during his 10 years as a Hindu monk at the Shivananda Ashram. Since 1995, he has been teaching yoga to both adults and children, expanding the ideas of inner peace into a large mission of global harmony. His passion for making yoga more inclusive led to the opening of Yoga Le Shalom, Yoga for Peace Center in Tel Aviv, where he advocated for yoga's potential to cultivate world peace. His most groundbreaking work is the creation of Rainbow Yoga, a transformative practice that moves beyond the individual, making yoga social, interactive, and inclusive. This revolutionary approach has touched lives worldwide, emphasizing community, love, and connection. Alongside his beautiful family, he is on a heartfelt mission to inspire a social evolution rooted in kindness, compassion, and inclusivity for all human beings, both human and animal, guided by the mantra, "Be the change you want to see in the world." He continues to lead with love and purpose, spreading light wherever he goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Gopal Amir Yafa. I'm delighted to welcome and introduce Ms. Valerie Fimat-Faneco. She's a reputed teacher who started to practice yoga in 1994. She began teaching in 1999 in the US after taking a 200 hours courses, and then went to the complete more than 8 combined years of training in the tradition of Krishnamacharya with her mentor Frank Modes in Belgium and at the KYM in India with Mr. Desikachar and other senior teachers. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Ms. Valerie Fimat.
Most welcome again, Valerie ji. Stage is yours for the topic, the journey of self-healing and wholeness through spiritual awakening. Next 14 minutes belong to you. Namaste.
Thank you. Thanks, Vikrant. So when I read the topic, I thought I'd start by breaking apart the topic itself, and it occurred to me that I have to share with you some of my personal experience of going through this process as well as trying to make it fit into a bigger picture. My personal experience in the last 4 years has been to go very much deeper than before in Vedic studies through the study of Sanskrit. So it's brought me to study the Vedas, the Shastras, in quite a lot of depth, I would say. So forgive me if I refer to the Shastras and to this as I explain what I'm about to explain. So when we talk about self-healing and wholeness as a goal, as an aim, it implies that there is a need for us to reach that insofar as us being dissociated from that state. Okay, so we are not healed, we are not whole. Therefore, we want to become healed and whole. And that is the state of being that is more or less always there by default. In a mechanical kind of everyday kind of attitude, we experience distress, frustration, stress. We might put this all into the bag and call it suffering. Okay. So the Shastras call it dukkha. Dukkhatraya. There's actually 3 sources of suffering that are identified by Sankhya, especially Sankhya philosophy. And the suffering that we create within ourselves, adhyatmika dukkha, the suffering that comes from external factors, and the suffering that is beyond our control, that comes from we might say acts of God, or things that are beyond our control. So whatever the source of suffering is, it's where most of us are, to one degree or the other. And so this process of reaching wholeness, of reaching a state of that we might call healing, of self-healing, is the process is going to take us from suffering to no suffering. And the scriptures, the Shastras are full of stories. They're replete with symbolism about this very process and the journey that takes us from the shore of suffering to the shore of no suffering. In the words of a beautiful sukta called Durga Sukta, and symbolism is that you board a ship or a boat and you are traveling from the shore of suffering to the shore of no suffering. So what about this journey? What about this process? It is a process that is very unique to all of us, and it starts by knowing where we are. Okay, and so if we turn to Bhagavad Gita, for example, second chapter, Ramanuja, in fact, commented on a particular verse in the second chapter by saying, I think it was verse 45, I can't remember. Anyway, apraptasya praptihi yogaha. What is yoga? Is the process that's going to take us from being incapable to being capable. So from incapable, we become capable through that process. From suffering, we experience freedom. Okay, and that implies understanding where we are and why we have reached the point where we're at. So there is a great deal of personal inquiry involved in that. Svadhyaya, inquiry upon our own self. Only that can take us there. So that is the first step, understanding where we are, understanding why we are there, and then establishing the objective. What does it mean to heal oneself? What does it mean to be whole? So that requires a little bit of reflection, because the word healing itself, in English at any rate, is different from the word curing. We could talk about curing in medical terms, curing a disease. There are diseases that are incurable. There are conditions, illnesses that are curable. But with healing, we're in a different domain altogether, because with healing, we're talking about how the person is relating to the condition, how the person is dealing with the disease. So that does not necessarily imply curing. That's why there is a spiritual dimension to healing that is not necessarily found in curing. Now, giving all that, yoga and the tools of yoga, especially pranayama, asana, even meditation, they have the potential to improve certain conditions and to aid in the curing process as well as aiding in the healing process. But when we're talking about healing, the practice, what Patanjali calls the internal practices, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, excuse me, the practices of the gradual refinement of the mind through meditation, those are the practices that are going to help us to move forward on this path of healing, of self-healing. And the scriptures are also very clear in suggesting that svadhyaya, personal inquiry, is really aided, we would say. It's not exclusively dependent upon, but it's aided by the study of the scriptures. So it's not just reading the scriptures, it's absorbing the scriptures, it's absorbing the text, listening to someone who can explain them and relate them to certain conditions and situations that we face. And that becomes, again, another layer of platform of reflection for us. That is how the study of the scriptures can help us to heal. Yes, to heal, I would say, insofar as aiding the mind to come to grips with certain situations. So in healing, there is an element of acceptance. At the same time, there's also an element of willfulness to change. So it's a mixing of ingredients, really. But it all begins with saying, I need help. If we don't say, I need help, the journey cannot begin. So the awareness that something needs to change is the starting point for something that is going to lead, it's going to be a whole process. And no solution is prescriptive. There's not a single, a ready-made package of meditation that's going to suit this particular condition or that particular situation. There are as many paths, as we often say, as there are people. But I would say there is really only one kind of healing that is possible, and that is self-healing. It has to come from the self, within the self, by the self. It doesn't mean that we do this alone, as we were talking about earlier in the panel. The guidance from a teacher, a good teacher, a competent teacher, is essential, because it's could be a very lonely prospect otherwise. So this is a big question. This application of the process to reach this wholeness depends on many things. It would depend on our education. It would depend whether we have a religious background or not. It would depend on our age, our affinities. Are we attracted by this particular object or this particular topic, or are we not? It's not prescriptive in the sense that it doesn't have to be necessarily in Indian scriptures, Vedic scriptures. It could lead us to seek guidance from a completely different spiritual tradition. And in fact, perhaps the best solution is to stay within our own family background and to turn back to these traditions to find guidance in that. It's no prescription. So this process does not necessarily involve isolating ourselves from life. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It is engaging in life and not escaping all of life's challenges. In the Yoga Sutra, it is very clear that there is a path of life, a path of experience. It's called bhoga. We go through life. This field of experience is there for us to walk through. And if ultimately, who is the one who is going to benefit from this field of experience? Is it our mind? It's not our mind, clearly. Our mind is only a tool that's going to bring about these perceptions and whatever there is to perceive, or whatever there is to experience. Who is the one who enjoys? Who is the one who is going to benefit from all this? It is what yoga calls the bhoktra, the enjoyer, the one who knows in Sankhya, the jna. There are many terms for this entity. It is our deep innermost entity, whatever we want to call it. The one who enjoys, the one who will eventually be liberated, the one who will, hopefully, if we manage to sustain this effort, at least enjoy the benefit of dukkha will be decreased, of diminishing dukkha, suffering, if not removing it completely. And that's where healing is very relevant, because the ambition may not be to completely suppress suffering. The ambition may be to decrease suffering. And that might be a more realistic proposition for some and then for others. So it's a very big question, how to reach spiritual realization. How to reach spiritual realization. First of all, what is spiritual realization? Not all of us will agree on what it is. What does it constitute? For some people, simply being freed from an unpleasant life situation may constitute realization in itself. if there has been continuous toxic relationship in one's life, for example, and that toxic relationship is finally coming to an end, that can give the same kind of sublimation to one as another type of more purely spiritual pursuit would give to another. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that there is not really a prescriptive way to go about this, and that the guidance from a teacher or mentor is probably essential. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I have really found a lot of wisdom in the scriptures, especially the Upanishadic literature that I'm studying at the moment, and it is helping me to understand certain situations that I'm dealing with. That's just how it works for me. I don't know if there is anything else you want to add, Vikram, or any question you want to ask me, but
Valerie ji, in fact, this speech, what you mentioned about the journey of self-healing and wholeness through spiritual awakening, it is nice that you started from the point everybody can relate to, dukkhatraya. And you also mentioned about all three types of dukkha. And you mentioned that journey from suffering to no suffering. You also quoted Ramanuja and saying that apraptasya praptihi yoga, which is what from being incapable to the capable. And I'm glad that in the summary you gave emphasis to the importance of right guru. As the Kenopnishad keeps on saying, Kathopanishad keeps on saying, Guru has to be Asharya Vakta, Shotriya and Brahmanistha, so that the Shastras can be translated in its right meaning, so that lots of confusion, lots of ignorance can be dispelled. So I'm sure that these words of wisdom will certainly inspire many of the people around, one, to realize this, that if there is misery in life, there is hope also in life. And hope lies in self-inquiry, identifying the right guru, following the right scriptures. So I'm sure that these words will be helpful for the audience, and it will yield them the peace that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak. Thank you.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank Ms. Valerie Fimat-Faneco for coming on to the platform of United Consciousness. Thank you so much.